The Bay Area, known for its famous Napa and Sonoma valleys, wine country, and for its quaint small waterfront towns rich with life and history. But beneath this unseemly innocent place lies a killer in the midst, waiting to strike terror into the residents of the community. The Zodiac Killer reign of terror began, they believe, as early as 1966 with Sherry Jo Bates, an 18-year-old college freshman at Riverside City College. The killings wouldn't continue right after Sherry Jo Bates's murder. It would take the killer almost 2 years before striking again. Welcome to Crime After Midnight, and today we'll be exploring the Zodiac Killer case, its grisly details, and man behind the killings. Let's dive in. Dear editor,
this is the Zodiac.
Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were two high schoolers out on their first date. David told Betty Lou's parents they would be going to a Christmas Carol concert and that he'd have her home by 11 p.m. But these plans changed somewhere when the couple decided to go to an area off Lake Herman Road called Lover's Lane. It's unclear how long the couple were in the car before the killer showed up, approaching the young couple in the station wagon. A passing motorist, Stella Borges, saw the grisly scene from the road, the young victims' lifeless bodies. The motorist didn't stop. She kept going until she found police help. When authorities arrived at the macabre scene unfolded at Lover's Lane, it's believed the young couple were forced out of David's mom's station wagon. According to the police report, Betty Lou Jensen exited the vehicle first. Just as David Faraday was exiting, he was shot in the head at point-blank range. Betty Lou Jensen was struck 5 times in the back as she tried to flee the scene. The killer used a .22 semi-automatic with Winchester Western Super X copper-coated long rifle branded ammunition. This wasn't a robbery. There wasn't any evidence of sexual assault, no witnesses, evidence, or a clear motive as to why these 2 young lives were stolen in the silence of the night. The festive air of the July 4th weekend was thick with the scent of summer and fireworks. A whispering breeze, the kind that carried sweet nothings and secrets, had drawn Darlene Ferrand and Michael Mageau to seek solitude away from the celebrations and prying eyes. They headed up to Blue Rock Springs Park. As they arrived, the car's tires crunched softly on the gravel of the desolate parking lot as they pulled into a secluded space within its confines. The music was softly playing from Darlene's car stereo, as the couple were busy in conversation when they noticed another car pull in about 8 to 10 feet away from theirs. An unspoken unease fell between Darlene and Michael as they watched the vehicle back out of the space in which it had pulled and exited the parking lot. A silent sigh of shared relief fell over the pair as they continued chatting. However, a few moments later, the car didn't just return, the driver asserted his presence. After a few moments, the driver exited the vehicle, pointing a big, beaming flashlight toward the couple in the car as he walked steadily over. In the suffocating stillness of the night, bathed in the harsh, accusatory beam of the flashlight, the young couple's hearts pounded as an unsettling realization dawned on them. Mistaking the grim figure for a police officer, they hastily fumbled for their IDs, hands trembling, the weight of innocence heavy in their pulses. Yet, no sooner had they made this gesture of compliance, the night erupted in a cacophony of terror. An upset young lady called into the Vallejo Police Department approximately 12:10 p.m. reporting that someone was shooting kids at Blue Rock Springs Park. By 12:40 a.m., Vallejo operator 355 received a phone call, the voice on the other end. An emotionless, monotone caller phoned in to report a murder, instructing the police to go 1 mile east of Columbus to a public park. The dispatcher confirmed they've already received calls about a shooting in that location. The dispatcher went further with asking the caller for his information. There was a short pause on the line before the caller replied.
The kids can be found in a car. They were shot with a Luger and I'm the one who did it. I also shot those kids last Christmas. Goodbye.
Michael Macho survived the attack while Darlene Ferrin sadly succumbed to her injuries. Darlene Ferrin was a wife, a mother, and a popular waitress at an area diner. Michael Macho did give police a description of the assailant. A white male, 5 feet 8 inches or 5 feet 9 inches, late 20 to 30, stocky build, round face, with black curly hair. Again, police had no clues to identify the person responsible for the attacks/murders. No robbery, no altercation, no sexual assault, no motives, no hardcore evidence other than a description given from the survivor, but nothing else that would link an identity to the person responsible for the killings. If you like the content so far, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Between late July and early August 1969, 3 Bay Area newspapers, San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, Vallejo Times-Herald, received almost identical handwritten letters from someone purporting to be the killer. The letter begins with, "Dear editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman." The letters contain details about the murders that only the killer would know. The writer of the letters also threatened that if these letters were not printed on the front pages, he would kill more people. Each letter was closed with a symbol which consisted of a circle with a cross through it. The letters also came with a 3-part cipher, which were 1/3 of a 408-character cryptography that claimed to have the identity of the killer. The newspapers published the killer's letter in ciphers as requested by the person who wrote the letter. On August 7, 1969, the San Francisco Examiner received a letter written, "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking," which was the first time investigators had a name to put to the killer. The first cipher, dubbed the Cipher 408 cipher, was cracked a week later, August 8, 1969, by a high school teacher and his wife Donald and Betty Harden. It read, "I like killing people because it is so much fun.
It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die I will be reborn in paradise, and all that I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give my name because you will try to slow me down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife." 3.5 weeks after Labor Day, couple Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard drove up on a spur of the moment to Lake Berryessa. At that time of year, the lake isn't as crowded as it is during the summer months. The couple went out to a small section near the water and laid out a blanket. It was a beautiful scenic view. Cecilia facing Brian as they talk. Something keeps catching Cecilia's eye in the distance as she tries to keep focused on what Brian is saying, but notices a man that appeared to be watching them. The couple continued to lay on the blanket and talk as Cecilia is still noticing the man steadily getting closer to them. She tells Brian, who is still engaged in conversation, that the man has ducked behind a tree. But when he emerged, had what appeared to be an executioner's hood over his head and sunglasses covering his eyes. The man had a gun and was walking steadily toward the pair. Before they knew it, the man was only a few feet from them, gun drawn. Brian had some back and forth dialogue with the person, at first assuming that the man was only there to rob them. Once the pair was tied up with rope, the killer took out a large knife with a 10 to 12-inch blade and began stabbing Brian Hartnell 6 times in the back and Cecilia over 10 times, 5 in the front and 5 in the back. Cecilia Shepard succumbed to her wounds a few days later. She was able to give a description of the attacker before dying. Brian Hartnell went on to survive the attack that day. Approximately 1 hour later, the Napa Police Department received a call from a man wanting to report a murder. No. A double murder. They are 2 miles north of park headquarters. They were in a white Volvo Carmen Ghia.
After asking to provide his location, the caller stated, "I'm the one who did it." When police found the victims, they found the white Carmen Ghia with a circle around a cross symbol on one of the doors. they also found dates and locations of the previous attacks. Seems like old Zodiac was making sure the cops had no problem connecting the other cases to this one. Some people dispute that the Lake Berryessa attack/murder were done by the Zodiac. Skeptics inquire about the style of the handwriting in comparison to other writings received by the Zodiac.
You're good for it. I'm going to send this to you, so you can go ahead and accept it.
Paul Stein was a 29-year-old part-time cab driver, full-time student majoring in English. It was an ordinary night in the city as Paul stopped to pick up a fare in front of the old theater on Geary and Mason. The cabbie was told the destination would be the intersection of Washington and Maple Street in the Presidio Heights neighborhood. Somehow, the yellow cab ended up at the intersection of Cherry and Washington, almost at the intersection when the young cab driver was shot dead at point-blank range. Police received a call about a cab driver being robbed or assaulted in the northeast section of the Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco by a black man. When police arrived on the scene and spoke to a couple of teenagers who witnessed the assailant in the act from an upstairs bedroom window, explained that it was a white male who got out of the cab and began cleaning off the doors, then walked to the front doors of the cab where he opened the door and appeared to be handling Paul. The killer then calmly walked down the street into the darkness moments before the cops arrived. Police realized they passed a white male fitting the teen's description on the way to the scene. The murder was considered a robbery until a letter was postmarked October 13, 1969, sent to the San Francisco Chronicle. The San Francisco Chronicle printed the letter in their paper with the title "Boastful Slayer." Here's a short excerpt from the clipping.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay Area. The San Francisco police could have catch me last night if they had.
The letter goes on taunting police failing to catch him and making sickening threats about shooting school children. Like intriguing cases like this one? Hit the like button below and subscribe for more true crime cases. According to Britannica.com, a cipher is any method of transforming a message to conceal its meaning. The term is also used synonymously with ciphertext or cryptogram in reference to the encrypted form of the message. Furthermore, all ciphers involve either transposition or substitution or a combination of these two mathematical operations. Researchers speculate the cipher type used to create the Z340, Z38, Z13 has to be a variety of different types used in one ciphertext, making these ciphers amongst the world's undeciphered. As of 2021, the FBI confirmed the Z340 was deciphered by a trio of code breakers. David Oranchak from the US, Sam Blake of Australia, and Jarl van Eyck of Belgium cracked the infamous Z340 cipher. The message within the cipher many hope to reveal the identity of the Zodiac Killer. The decoded message didn't reveal any useful information to help catch this killer after 51 years. The decoded message reads, "I hope you're having lots of fun in trying to catch me."
That wasn't me on the TV show. Which brings up a point about me. I'm not afraid of the gas chamber, because it will send me to paradise all the sooner. Because I now have enough slaves to work for me, where everyone else has nothing when they reach paradise. So they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life will be an easy one in paradise death.
In 2021, a French engineer Faikal Zairoui has claimed to have solved the final two ciphers Z13 and Z32. The Z13 and Z32 are the two shortest of the ciphers sent to the San Francisco Chronicle in 1970, and still have yet to be cracked by investigators. The FBI has confirmed that the code breakers did solve the Z340 cipher in 2021. But FBI hasn't commented on whether Zairoui's solutions have indeed solved the infamous two ciphers as of yet. The FBI does report that the Zodiac Killer case is an ongoing and open investigation at this time. The Zodiac Killer was never identified or caught, even though there hasn't been a shortage of possible suspects or wild speculations. Our first suspect up is Gary Francis Post, who was a counterintelligence officer in the Air Force born on November 8, 1937. But on August 23, 2018, amateur sleuths believe that Post killed Sherry Jo Bates, then 18-year-old freshman at Riverside City College, on October 31, 1966 in Riverside, California. At the scene, investigators have found a broken, paint-stained wristwatch that was determined to be purchased at a military base. Post also had military background and was a house painter by profession. Coincidentally, Gary Post was getting a checkup about 15 minutes away from the crime scene. In 2021, a group of investigators claimed that Post was likely the Zodiac Killer. The police also found a size 10 footprint at the scene that matches other Zodiac Killer footprints found at other crime scenes. Post also wore a size 10 shoe. People who knew Post can recall his sordid behavior and how he could be the Zodiac, and that Post even admitted to being the Zodiac. Until moving to Groveland, California, after getting married in the 70s, little is known about Gary Francis Post. It's in Groveland his shady reputation was established. Those close to Gary describe him as having a violent personality and arguing with his wife a lot. It's said that Post ran a criminal posse in Groveland of about 10 men who were brutally loyal to their leader. Arthur Lee Allen, born December 18, 1933, is one of the most significant due to being officially named by law enforcement. He was a dishonorably discharged Navy veteran who was fired from his job as an elementary school teacher due to sexual misconduct with students in 1968. Arthur Lee Allen was in Riverside, California the weekend Sherry Jo Bates was murdered. Police first became interested in Allen when he was reported in the vicinity of the Lake Berryessa attack/murder. He was interviewed a week later by Vallejo police but stated he was scuba diving at least 100 miles away. 2 years later, a friend of Arthur's named Donald Cheney reported to the cops that Mr. Allen expressed a desire to kill, used the name Zodiac, and had a flashlight attachment for a firearm. Allen also owned a Zodiac brand wristwatch. Allen owned a Royal typewriter with Elite Type, which was similar to what the killer used, who typed up the Bates murder letters mailed to police and newspapers. Ross Sullivan was a library assistant at Riverside City College. He's suspected of being the serial killer by sleuths because of the resemblance he bears to the sketch. He also was close in proximity to Sherry Jo Bates, who was strongly believed to be a Zodiac victim. He wrote creepy poems. He also didn't show up for work the day after Sherry Jo Bates was murdered on October 31, 1966. When he showed up again, he was wearing different clothes, and this was significant because he wore the same thing all the time. He supposedly arrived in the Riverside area a few months before Sherry Jo Bates was murdered. After she was killed, he then moved to the Bay Area a few weeks before the murder/attacks of Benicia, Vallejo, and Lake Berryessa. He was supposedly living in the Presidio Heights area at the time of the Paul Stine killing. It's also said that Sullivan moved to New York, where a known Zodiac letter sent to the LA Times in 1974 originated, as proved by a postmark from Albany. Ross died in 1977, which is why some believe the murders and letters stopped. Heriberto Seda, also known as the Zodiac Killer Copycat, was an infamous American serial killer active in New York City during the 1990s. Born on July 31, 1967, Seda was responsible for a series of shootings that terrorized the city, primarily targeting individuals in Brooklyn and Queens. He adopted the moniker of the Zodiac Killer, drawing inspiration from the notorious California-based serial killer of the late 1960s. Seda's attacks were characterized by random and brutal shootings, and he claimed responsibility for the crimes through a series of letters sent to the media and law enforcement, reminiscent of the original Zodiac Killer's style. He was ultimately captured in June 1996 and sentenced to 235 years in prison for multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. Seda's case remains a chilling reminder of the complex nature of criminal psychology and the lasting impact of such heinous acts on communities. The Zodiac Killer is still an investigation shrouded in mystery, whether it's his various enigmatic ciphers or menacing letters taunting police failure in catching him. Whether the case will ever be solved, it will always intrigue investigators, sleuths, cryptologists, and true crime fans for future generations. Thanks for watching. Like intriguing cases like this one? Hit the like button below and subscribe for more chilling cases.